Council, you have an agenda before you this evening. I will entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second from Councilmember Valento. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and agenda is approved. Our next item this evening is open forum. Open forum is anybody who wishes to speak and address council's opportunity to do so. We ask that you limit your comments to about 3 minutes. I notice we may have a number of participants. Do we have a number of participants here on the variance appeal? And if you are here on interest of the variance appeal, we will provide an opportunity for one member to speak and address council if you'd like. But if there are others who would like to make comment on that topic, now would be a great time to do so. Is there anybody signed up for open forum? All right. John, is it Dolls? I may have your name misspelled. Is it John Dolls? Not seeing anybody. Jim Redfield. Good evening. Yes.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of City Council and department heads and our staff members and the other folks here tonight. It's been really a difficult time for the last year and a half, 2 years. And unfortunately, it seems like it's going to last for a little while. But I just want to say, during these difficult times, I want to thank all of you for all you've been doing and how you've been taking care of us during this time. So I just want to say thank you.
Thank you so much. Next we have, is it Tim Ollinger? Is there anybody that would like to speak? And we can open up to anyone else. Welcome.
Thank you.
Could you have your name and address for the record?
Pardon me?
Could
Oh,
we
my
have your
name
name?
is Tim Ollinger.
Perfect.
I'm with Alliance Building Corporation. I'm the general contractor for Minnesota Truck Headquarters. And I just wanted to mention through this process that I understand the reason for the sign ordinance. But a couple points that I wanted to make is we're in an area that is almost all the property owners have signs that are non-conforming. And my client who purchased the property, I'm sure he did a lot of research on the property, but he may not have researched all the ordinances with the city of Forest Lake. And so when the plans were prepared, it was a surprise that signs were limited to the lowest part of the building, which happens to be 9'2". And with a truck dealership, you try and maximize your parking lot to show off your product. So by putting a 9'2" sign next to trucks that are 7 feet tall, or 6 feet tall, I'm sorry, would pretty much shield your pylon or your monument sign. And so the 24-foot sign was kind of, it matches the height of the taller part of the building. Okay, so, and then in our appeal, we mentioned that instead of raising the building and building a brand new one, to get a higher sign just was impractical. So we're appealing the verdict of the zoning commission and wanted to appeal to your common sense. So that's it. Thank you.
We will provide opportunity for the applicant to provide additional comment or answer any questions council may have when we get to that portion of the agenda. Thank you. Is anybody else that would like to speak in open forum this evening? If not, we will close open forum and move on to the consent agenda. Council, before you this evening is consent agenda items 6A through 6E. I'll entertain a motion or any changes.
Mayor Bain, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, 6A through 6E.
I'll second.
Motion from Councilmember Byström and a second from Councilmember Munson. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And consent agenda is approved. That moves us on to our regular agenda this evening. Our first item is the M Health Annual Presentation, and Chief Newman.
So M Health started providing ambulance service for the city of Forest Lake on June 1st, 2020, right at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And so since they've been here for a year, I've asked them to come in and provide the council with kind of a recap of how it went during the first year. So I'd like to invite Supervisor Kevin Kane and Deputy Chief Dunn up to the podium to give you a presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief Newman. Madam Mayor and council members, thank you for the opportunity to address the council and the residents. As Chief Newman mentioned, this is a snapshot of our first year providing 911 service in the to Forest Lake, but also to what we call our northern region, which includes portions of Hugo, Forest Lake, Scandia, Wyoming, and it's kind of a jagged border. We're going to present some data to you that is specific to Forest Lake, but we also wanted to present it to you in the context of an operating region because we feel that we are operating, utilizing a deployment model that gains strength and size. But we also wanted to make sure that as we are looking at a larger territory, that we look at the individual municipalities and that we address them with the municipal leaders and our first responder leaders so that we're not overbroad. We can drill down to what is very specific to you as the decision makers and lawmakers and to those that are responsible for the residents. We do have a snapshot of the first year. I think we did present it, and we do have some copies for the general public. The data that we present is raw data. We don't scrub the data. We don't believe in applying averages. When we're looking at specific calls, whether they're within our parameters or particularly those ones that are outside of our parameters, we want to make sure we're paying very close attention to. We don't look at the anomalies and say it's going to throw off our averages. We know that, and we discuss them openly with our partners. Make sure that we're not looking at some of those unusual cases and dismissing them, but that we're learning from them. So if I may, I was going to go over some of the reporting aspects that we go over, particularly every month with Chief Newman. We do meet very often with Captain Weiss and Chief Patterson. We look at total volume. These are the number of requests, the time that we're sending an ambulance to a residence or a business coming through a 911 call. And through the year for our entire northern region, we had 4,611 requests. Of that, we get canceled before we arrive on scene. It's an important piece of data because it does require resources to be available. But even though those resources didn't transport a patient, we do have to have them on standby. So 274 times within our northern region last year, we had cancellations. We track how many times that we ask for mutual aid. We have mutual aid agreements with all of the ALS EMS organizations around the area, including White Bear Lake, Alina, North, Lakes Regions EMS. And last year, we had to ask our partners 181 times to come and help us. 181 times out of 4,611 requests. But of that mutual aid agreement, we are also available to our partners when they're short-staffed. If we have the closest available ambulance outside of our northern region, outside of Forest Lake, and somebody needs that ambulance, we're going to go. So in last year, we were requested to respond 187 times. It's an important number that we're balanced. This is a very high number, and we've seen this throughout our central region as well, that with COVID, it really threw off the ability to anticipate the peaks and the lows of 911 activity. During the COVID crisis, the numbers really got turned on its head, and it affected us, it affected all of the EMS organizations around the region and really around the country. So although that number is high, it's higher than we saw in 2018, it's higher than we saw in 2019, the important thing is that we're all working together and we have that balance, that resources, when we do have to leave the area, we also have resources that are available to come back in. We look at the number of emergent transports, and if you see that number in front of you, of the total scene responses, or we got on scene 4,286 times, and we transported these patients, we only transported the patients, lights and sirens, 279 times. We like to highlight that when it comes to lights and sirens, we take that privilege, very, very dear. It's dangerous. It's dangerous for our crews. It's dangerous for the general public. And we try to limit that lights and sirens use as much as we possibly can. We give that authority and that accountability to our ambulance crews to really look at the condition of their patient. Not what they were called for, but what is their condition right now? And is time of the essence? Then they're going to use their lights and sirens for transport. If those saved minutes aren't going to have an impact on that patient's clinical outcome, then it's responsible to not use the lights and sirens and get the patient to the hospital as quickly as possible, but not increase any safety hit, place them in greater jeopardy, or place the general public in jeopardy. So that number is low, but it's not consistent with what we see in other municipalities. We also see in the report response types. We see them as Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, and Echo. We have an emergency certified dispatch center where we assign urgency to these responses based on what the patient's complaints are, life threats, multiple complaints that might play into each other. Alpha is the least urgent, and we're not using lights and sirens. Same with Bravo. These are your minor injuries, minor illnesses, where again, that saved few minutes probably will not have, or statistically will not have, an impact on that patient's outcome. The more urgent calls, the Charlie, the Delta, and the Echo, we do use our lights and sirens. And I point that out only because in the next area is our response time. And this is the category that our residents are really measuring us. How long do they perceive it takes us to get there? And we know that there's a lot of factors that influence that. The time, the clock seems to go very slow when a family member is sick or injured. But when we're looking at our response times, we want to look in two different categories. One, the category where we are not using our lights and sirens. Traffic then does play into it, like traffic lights and other things. And then the combined overall. So in the year end, for the overall northern region, for emergent responses, we averaged 7 minutes and 21 seconds. And combined all of our responses together, 7 minutes and 59 seconds. I mean, bring your attention to the next page, which is Forest Lake, zeroed in specifically to these boundaries. I won't go over all of them, but I'll point out the ones I think are most important to you, certainly most important to the residents. And these are where questions might come up. When the residents want to give feedback or they have questions, these are usually the areas that they focus on. We did see that overall, comparative to the northern region, Forest Lake is one of our busiest areas. We did have an overall response time within the Forest Lake boundaries for the year of 6 minutes and 7 seconds. There's a difference quite a bit between some of the outlying municipalities, being that we have a denser population here. We do have some shorter drive times. We do have a higher concentration of deployment. We have more ambulances spending more time in this area with our dynamic posting. We're moving ambulances around based on availability and where we anticipate, based on historical data, where the next 911 calls will come in. And we see that reflected. That is a pretty significant difference in the response times to the residents of Forest Lake. A couple of the things that we learned over the last year. One, when we started off, we were really looking at gaps in data. Previous 911 provider didn't capture as much data as we do. It was not available to us. But one thing that we were going to hold consistent was we wanted to start on a flat foundation. So our initial deployment was exactly the same. 3 ambulance, 3 ALS, advanced life support ambulances during the day, 3 at night, and then a basic life support ambulance during what was anticipated to be some of the peak volume during the day, and also some of the discharges out of the hospital up in Wyoming. And what we learned, and I think part of it was because of COVID creating a lot more urgency. People were waiting longer to call 911, so their conditions grew worse fast. We learned within the first 3 months that we really needed a 4th ALS ambulance. So I believe it was about October of last year that we changed that BLS ambulance, that basic life support ambulance, to an advanced life support ambulance Monday through Friday during peak hours. We also changed what time they started. We anticipated busier times a little bit earlier during the day, but going through the statistics, working with Chief Newman every month, we realized that we're better off having that 4th advanced life support ambulance. And then it has really, I think, helped lower our response time and improve our service to the residents. I'm going to let Kevin kind of talk about some of the other activities that we are involved with the city and some of the other first responder partners.
All right, thank you very much, City Council and Mayor. Kevin Kane, I'm Operations Supervisor with mHealth Fairview EMS. I am full-time up in this region, so my office is just down the street a little bit. So I'm in this neck of the woods all the time. So Deputy Chief Dunn obviously talked a lot about the numbers. I'm just here to kind of explain what we've been up to in brief over the last, well, now more than 12 months, since June of 2020. As Deputy Chief mentioned, on a monthly basis, I meet with Chief Newman and Captain Weiss, and we go over this data on a monthly basis. You know, the first few months, it takes a bit more time to go through that, explain what the data means. The data portion of it gets quicker over time, and we really get to talk about calls that went really well, maybe calls that we needed some improvement on, and just general relationship building between us, police and fire. And we work so closely together on scenes. It was important to us coming up into this region as the new guys and the new gals to sit down with them and say, we're an open book. We're going to share all the data, and we're also not scared if there's something that you feel we need to improve on. So along with that, you know, we're trying to integrate into the community as much as possible. Not only this community, but the communities we serve up here, and that's extends from, you know, our parades, you know, things like that that we love to participate in. 4th of July this year, it was our first time, because, you know, of course, 2020, we didn't have that. So we staffed an extra rig for that, you know, based on the counsel of Chief Newman and the police department. We're gonna have a lot of folks here. Let's have an extra rig. We actually brought up a bike team as well. So if anyone saw them running around on their bikes, that was just kind of a quicker response with the massive crowds to be able to carry a little bit of EMS supplies and first respond to them. So that was another exciting thing we did for the 4th of July. That was an awesome time. You know, we also work pretty closely with the Forest Lake High School. They have an EMS program there, and Tracy, one of the lead instructors there, we've worked out a relationship where those students ride in our ambulances to get that real-time, you know, feedback on their skills, and just kind of get to do what they've probably been in school for a little while for, and finally they get to get out there and do it. So it's great for us to see them. Of course, you know, we use that as a recruitment tool as well, but it's just fantastic that they get somewhere to ride. So like I said, I'll keep my part of it brief, but I did want to kind of share some of the nuances and some of the things that we're doing up here in Forest Lake to keep everyone safe. So if anyone has any questions, happy to answer those.
Thank you for being here. Council, questions that you may have this evening? I was curious on the mix, and I was wondering if you, the chart that has the nature of the call and
Yeah.
the mix of calls, do you have, and maybe you don't have previous statistics on how this mix may have changed over time, or do you have a sense on, I'm surprised at the mix that are related to psychiatric calls. I expected that to be high, but I wasn't expecting it to be so far. You're number one. And is that a newer trend, or just do you have some sense on that?
So data up here, like you said, is we've only been gathering it since June of 2020. But as a system, I can tell you that that number is always on the rise. I think we only have to look at the news or talk to, police officers, firefighters, and ourselves to know that, like you saw, that's a majority of our calls. With that being said, to lend slight amount of context to that is, these are the nature of the call as they come into our dispatch center. So we don't change that based on we get there and all of a sudden it's truly not, it's something else altogether. So there's a small percentage of calls that get lumped into that psychiatric range that might not be. But with that being said, it absolutely is one of the highest call types in most of our regions.
And then I would just ask the broad question, any specific requests of us or anything that we could be doing, should be doing, things you want on our radar?
I think the one request that we put out is that we want feedback. As you know, we collect a lot of data. We analyze a tremendous amount of data. We're not a data-driven service. We're a performance-driven service. We use data to back that up, but we're performance-driven. And the one bit of data that we can't get enough of is feedback from the firefighters, the police officers, and the residents. We do have a program in place that we send out a solicitation card to all of our 911 responses, all of our 911 transports, where we are asking them through a website, through an anonymous website, to provide feedback. And the feedback goes to a third party. We don't have any control over it. So that, again, we're not getting filtered, redacted feedback. We're really getting raw data. So I would encourage that when anybody has the opportunity to provide the feedback, we really have a thirst for it. We want our residents to feel that they can be connected with us on their terms. We don't want to go knocking on their doors to make social calls. So at community events, we want people to come and see us, but we do want them to come, and whether it's through you, the chiefs, or through their website, when there's something that is difficult to talk about or something that's angry, we want to know those. So that would be my ask of the council.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate your desire for that information and that level of feedback. I hear only positive things, but that is very anecdotal and based on some updates we get from the chiefs from time to time. But it's great to see, response time. It's great to see that you're, the community engagement efforts. And so I think from my perspective, it's been a successful first year. And let's build from that. Council, any other questions or feedback that you'd like to get?
I'm curious on your air partnership. Do you still partner with, who do you partner with if you need to bring the?
We partner with the closest helicopter available.
Okay.
We have a financial connection with LifeLink 3.
Okay.
LifeLink 3 is a consortium of several healthcare systems, not just mHealth, but a couple of the other large healthcare systems. So it's a balanced financial relationship. We don't own them. We don't have any kind of a day-to-day operational influence. It's purely on who is the closest. And that's really getting information back through the dispatch centers to determine who can get there the fastest.
Just a curiosity question. So thank you. And I would echo Mayor Bain. I've heard very good things over the course of this last year, and do appreciate your visibility out in the community. It's kind of hard to miss you, actually, the maroon and gold.
You notice this?
Yeah. But no.
We're not subtle.
Yeah, we
No,
appreciate
ma'am. We're not subtle.
it. Thank you for that.
Any other points of feedback? Thank you for being here this evening.
Madam Mayor, thank you.
Thank
Council
you.
members, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Chiefs, thank you.
Our next item this evening is address 132 19th Street Southwest, Planning Commission variance denial Appeal. And Donovan, I believe you're going to start us on this. Let's sequence discussion tonight with presentation from Donovan, initial comments, questions from council, and then we will invite the appellant to make any statements that they would like to make to council. Council can ask any questions and we can take the conversation from there. Thank you.
Certainly. Mayor, members of council, I'd like to present the variance denial appeal of Minnesota Truck Headquarters sign variance application, which was denied by Planning Commission, and as written in the zoning code, those appeals go to be reviewed by the city council. I'd like to present the application that was before the Planning Commission in a recent meeting. Minnesota Truck Headquarters, ably represented by most of the back row here, is located at 132 19th Street Southwest. This is a property within the main kind of car dealer row within the city of Forest Lake on the west side of I-35, on a local street that has about speeds of about 25 to 30 miles an hour in general. In this case, the MTH, or Minnesota Truck Headquarters, applied for a sign that didn't meet applied for variance for a sign that didn't meet the basic code requirement. As Mr. Erlinger mentioned earlier, that the lowest part of the roof designates the monument sign maximum height. In this case, it's the eave measuring 9'2" above grade on the existing building. They seek to simply just reskin and repaint for their use. There have been car dealerships here for over 20 years, from what I can tell from the record. And in the past, city code did allow for signs, greater than the lowest roof height. And you can see here in the distance, the current, caliber collision sign is one example. You can see some other signs in the rear that also show that. When heard by the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to deny the variance on the grounds that the applicant did not provide information that established the reason for a variance. Reasons that the applicant gave to support their application was that they felt that the sign code was restrictive and didn't allow them the same signage as nearby properties, and that any kind of options I presented, for instance, or I suggested that perhaps if it was located in the north end of the site where most of the traffic presumably comes from, getting off the highway, it'd be more visible, and rather than in the middle of the site where it's proposed, where the tall vehicles would largely obscure it. But also I reminded the Planning Commission at the time that basically using the non-conforming signs that are adjacent to the property as a reason for a variance is not for one thing a evaluation criteria used to grant a variance, as well as if the Planning Commission granted a variance based on that criteria, they're basically undermining the sign code that was adopted by City Council, basically rewriting code because at some point in the past, I'm not sure when, the City Council said those tall signs, unless there was a correspondingly tall building, were not appropriate and perhaps were out of scale. One of the Planning Commission members noted during the meeting that this, looking at the caliber collision sign, for instance, was the reason why City Council had changed the rules to find, because they found that the height of the signs was disproportionate to the overall scale. So when Minnesota Truck Headquarters appealed the Planning Commission decision, they didn't criticize the actual Planning Commission reason, the stated reason regarding not having establishing a reason for the variance. They offered more reasons for why they believe it's reasonable to allow for this 24-foot pylon sign. And one of the reasons was that they wanted visibility from I-35 as well as 19th Street. When this property on the west side of 19th is quite a fair distance from I-35, and I think it's unreasonable to be able to see any sign as you're driving highway speeds, through a mix of buildings and change of grade from I-35 to 19th Street Southwest. Also, the applicant notes that they're making changes that limit the impact on the environment, such as changing parking lot lighting with to have LED fixtures and reusing existing light poles to minimize landfill space, interior lighting to be LED fixtures, and that sort of thing. I guess the one thing I'll just note that one thing that the Minnesota Truck Headquarters does have is they're branding their building similar to anything from your Golden Arches and McDonald's or the Olson's pink trucks. I think that's an effective way to get your message out there without requiring a taller sign. But the request here and the decision before request is to overturn the variance denial, and the action before council is to either affirm the Planning Commission denial or overturn the denial decision. And in your packets, before you is a resolution of denial prepared by the city attorney for council's consideration, and obviously if council seeks to overturn the denial action, we can prepare another resolution. But with that, happy to take any questions from city council.
Thank you, Donovan. Before we hear from the appellant, I guess I'd just ask any questions that council may have.
Yeah. I do have one, Mara, if you don't mind. You said that measurement is from the lowest level of the roof line. Is that what that's measured
Correct.
from?
The lowest part of the roof is what the code says.
Because all the years that I worked on the planning commission, way back when, it was always the mean height, which is the average height from the eave to the top. I don't know whenever that changed or whatever, but I thought that was what it would have given at least a couple more feet there. That's for sure. I don't know how wide that building is, but I'm not sure how that wording got changed. But the sign ordinance is the most difficult thing I ever worked on in 12 years of being on the planning commission. Just comment for now. That's so. I want to hear what everybody else has to say.
I have a question. Is this common for cities to have a sign ordinance similar to this? Do you know?
I don't know that. I mean, I do believe underneath that it's a desire to have substantial buildings, perhaps, buildings that with a higher assessed value to support the commercial tax base. That would be one reason I would see underneath that. And of course, if council believes that this standard is too restrictive, the proper pathway is to a zoning text change, not through these individual actions, I would say.
Your Honor?
Please.
Your Honor, Councilmember Valento, to answer your question, yes, it is very common for cities to have sign regulations of many types based on the aesthetic desire of that community. Some have height limitations such as the mean of the roof line. Others prohibit pylon signs altogether and require monument signs that are closer to the ground, depending on the nature of the district and what the aesthetic is of that district. There's nothing unusual about that as a nature of regulation for a city.
Thank you, Pete. Other questions for staff before we open it up to the appellant? I guess I'd like to invite anybody from Minnesota Truck Headquarters that would like to speak further. I know you had some comments in open forum, but if you have other things you'd like us to consider, happy to hear it now. And if I could have you start with your names for the record.
My name is Mike Jordat. I'm the dealer principal of Minnesota Truck Headquarters.
Thank you for being here.
My name is Matthew Jordat. I'm also dealer principal for Minnesota Truck Headquarters.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Well, when we chose to expand the metro, we've been in St. Cloud, Minnesota since 2004. We started with my dad, myself, my brother, and we have grown to a team of almost 90 full and part-time employees. We do about $70 million a year in revenue. And when we were considering the metro, I drove all around. Well, you name it, I spent days, months in my truck looking for places to come to put a store in the metro. And when my friend Bob was selling Lakeside Auto Sales, the current location that we're talking about, we came and looked at it, and it had great location next to all the new franchise stores. The building was very outdated. The one side of the parking lot had gravel, which I can't even wrap my head around. So we bought the property. We did overlook the sign requirements, didn't know that it had to be to the certain point or peak of the building. So at 9 feet 6 inches, our average pickup truck is 7 feet tall. When the parking lot is empty like it is right now, and what you see on the mock-ups, you can see a 9 foot 6 inch sign. But as soon as we put 150 pickup trucks and SUVs in that parking lot, you're not going to be able to see that sign. So a 24-foot sign, our main location, we've got about a 60-foot sign that we had to do the same thing as this, is go through the town and get a variance and whatnot. At 24 feet, I think that is in line with everybody else on that row of businesses, and it'll help for us to get a better visibility of the people in the community looking to buy a car or a vehicle of that sort. At the end of the day, our biggest thing as a company is we're big in the community that we serve. And what I mean by that, in our town of St. Cloud, we donate hundreds of thousands of dollars a year to the community, to schools, to police officers, fire departments, veteran organizations. We sponsor about every ball field, hockey rink, you name it. We're big into the community. It's what we do. And we're going to do the same thing here in Forest Lake. But we are going to need the city of Forest Lake to help us with getting the visibility that we need in order to grow our company here in Forest Lake. And eventually, our plan here in Forest Lake is to grow what we've grown our store in St. Cloud to. And that's our original building in St. Cloud is about the same size as this facility. Our new facility in St. Cloud is 60,000 square feet, and that's how we employ everybody that we employ, and we'd like to do the same thing in Forest Lake. I'm 36 years old. My brother's 31 years old. We hope to be in this community for not 5 years, not 10 years, but decades and decades and decades to be a part of this community. So if you guys could strongly consider allowing us to put this 24-foot sign up, it would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And before you leave, council, any questions for the appellant at this point? Just want to make sure we have an opportunity for any Q&A. Go ahead.
I have a question. You know, you talk about your facility up in St. Cloud. Are you surrounded by kind of other dealerships?
We don't have any other dealerships by us in St. Cloud, but what we have is we have implement dealers, we have marine dealers. We're kind of on the opposite end of town of the other car dealerships, but we have a Bobcat dealer, a Case dealer, a John Deere dealer. All of our marine dealerships are right by us. So we have a big retail presence by us, which our place here in Forest Lake has kind of the same thing, and that's what we like to be around, because after they go buy a boat or an ice castle or a camper, they come see us to buy a truck.
Well, that was kind of one of my observations as I'm thinking about this is, you know, that thoroughfare kind of naturally draws people that are looking for cars and trucks back in there, because there are so many auto dealerships back in there.
Yep.
And so kind of beyond, I mean, what are your other kind of marketing strategies beyond, you know?
Just putting up a 24-foot sign?
The signage you think you need.
So we're really big into digital and social media, and we use every form of advertising that you can use. But at the end of the day, our brand is our brand, and that logo that you see, we've got about 100,000 followers on Facebook, and we spend about $5 million a year advertising that logo. We're very branded in what we do in used pickup trucks. We're not, and I don't mean this in any bad way, but we are not a used car dealer. We are a used franchise. Our vehicles, when we open up in Forest Lake, there'll be 150 trucks and SUVs there with about $15 million of inventory. So we specialize in 1 to 2 year old vehicles that are under bumper to bumper warranty, and they're gonna be the nicest used cars that this community has ever seen. That's kind of our MO. You're not gonna see an old 200,000 mile car with the bumpers hanging off. That's not our business model.
Thank you for being here this evening. Council will take questions and conversation back to council. Any questions, clarifications needed, general discussion? Councilmember Husnick.
Yeah, trying to get the words out here. The last thing I want to do is drive a business away from our city, you know? And we keep making it more and more difficult all the time. However, we have an ordinance here that is outdated as far as I'm concerned. There should be something, like for instance, that would allow this in this corridor. You know, this blanket ordinance that just covers kind of everything. You're not, you know, that's not a residential area. That's what it is. It's all business, you know, and of course they are advertising. The problem with that, we're kind of stuck with this restrictive ordinance that's not helping, you know, because it's not an equal thing just because their building happens to be a little smaller than somebody else's along the very same corridor. I'd love to see some changes in that ordinance, at least for that area, you know? Maybe within a certain zone or, which is, in this case, it's car sales. That's basically what it amounts to. Just a comment I wanted to throw out there. It's tough deal, and the sad part about it is that Planning Commission really did due diligence on here and did according to what the zoning is, and so I'd like to see some changes in the zoning. That's my way out of it.
Mayor Bain, just a comment. So I sit on the Planning Commission and listen to those meetings, and the biggest debate, I have to agree with Councilmember Husnick, is the signs.
Oh,
Everything that comes, whether it's an apartment building, and they're following it like they should, but it's just a red flag for me of is it too restrictive? And I know it has a historical.
It's a beast.
Yep.
Yeah, this is one of those can of worms for me. You know, I think, you know, granting variance opens the door to grant another variance, and it opens the door to grant another variance. We have to circle back and address the ordinance issue. And then, you know, we have an opportunity for this organization, this company, and others to come back to us, you know, and be within compliance. The reason I asked about the kind of that marketing strategy question is I understand, you know, it would be really nice to have that visibility from the freeway, but I don't get the sense that, you know, this company, because of its reputation and the other ways in which it's marketing itself, is, you know, going to kind of die on that hill, right? That you know, this is going to make or break them. So, you know, I think we have to address the ordinance issue, but right now I can't support the variance.
The only other comment I'd have to make about that is, being that they're off the freeway there, I don't know if that 20-foot sign would help them on the freeway part of it at all. All I want to do is, I'd like to see something equal for everybody along that stretch of road there. But my thought is that we do it by fixing the ordinance somehow. And so I'd have to agree with Kathy in that we have to support the Planning Commission for doing the right thing here. and, which is not easy, because I understand what these folks are trying to do, and I've been in business a long, long time, and I know that how this restrictive some of this signage can be, especially along that stretch, because not everybody drives up and down that road. People that drive up and down that road, they're looking for a business of some sort, so.
Yeah, you look at the picture that Donovan has on the screen right now, and certainly the proposed sign is not out of character for this district. It fits right in. The challenge is that it's, clearly not in compliance with our current sign ordinance. And my concern on granting this is there's not I don't know if there's a single commercial district in the city that doesn't have other signs that the same argument could be made that it's, not out of character. And that's my concern, that this just really becomes a slippery slope, and that in granting the variance, we've essentially knocked out the sign ordinance. And I don't think that's the right thing to do. I do think we need to circle back to the sign ordinance. However, I've been a part of some of those conversations, and this is a challenging topic. And so I haven't heard an argument yet that will get me to a yes on this particular variance. Because again, I just think the need is, the risk of opening up the can of worms, and that same argument being made for many, many locations within the city is quite high if we grant this variance. And so it's easy to sit in this position and say, oh, it's the sign ordinance, but I also know that that is also a challenging proposition. But I think it is a process we need to go down if we desired there to be, standards based on, for example, this street along 19th Avenue. It seems to be like we'd be open to having a district where taller signs are allowed, and maybe that is a more precise level of standard than what we have today, which is based more on just zoning district. I think the question for that is more of a topic of citywide sign ordinance rather than a variance by variance. Glad you're here, and it's painful to say no, because we want everyone to be successful, and we're happy you've made the investments you've made, and there's a lot of compelling reasons. But it is also our job to set policy, and when we don't agree with policy, we need to change policy. And we need to do that unless there's a reason for a particular variance, and I'm just not seeing a reason for a variance.
I think there needs to be something done for this corridor, at least because of that intense amount of business going on there. And I would love to see something happen here soon that we could kind of fix that, somehow, without the variance process. Because I agree with Kathy. I mean, open up a can of worms there, and sometimes it's like herding cats. You get one cat in the box, and by the time you get the other one back, that one jumped out, so it pains me to make the motion that we accept the resolution 091321-02.
There's a motion for the resolution. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion from Councilmember Husnick and a second from Councilmember Valento. Any further discussion on this matter?
I would just like to point out that in the future, I would like to see us at least look into changing this ordinance. This ordinance is new to me, and I understand having ordinances for signs. I would just love to compare our sign ordinance with surrounding cities.
And this is a challenging issue. It's been a challenging issue in the community for a long time, and I do think I think this is a great example of, I'm not necessarily sure this is an unreasonable request, but kind of the rules are the rules, basically. And so let's, circle back and make sure we address this issue.
Any further discussion?
Mayor Bain,
Yes,
I just want to thank you for choosing Forest Lake to come here, and your future investments in the community. That's really valued. So this is a hard decision for us. We keep getting these.
Yeah.
I'm going to make the promise that I'm going to push for changing this ordinance so we can be more equal along that stretch of zoning there. It really needs to be done.
So maybe this isn't the end, but a little time.
All right. With that, all those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? and motion carries. Thank you again for being here this evening. Our next item is item 7D, the accounting I'm sorry, 7C, resolution 09132101, which is a resolution to accept a donation from William and Marguerite Jeans. And Chief Peterson.
Yep, Mayor and City Council members, that's correct. What I have for you tonight is a resolution to accept a donation to the Police Department from William and Marguerite Jeans in the amount of $100. I want to thank the Jeans for their generous donation, and staff recommendation is to accept these funds with gratitude.
A motion that we accept the resolution with gratitude. Is there a second?
I'll second.
A motion and a second from Councilmember Valento. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. Next item is 7D, accounting manager position, new hire. And Sandy, I believe you're walking us through this.
Yes, the council has before them a recommendation for a new hire for the accounting manager position. We went through a process of interviewing and testing and have done a contingent offer to Kim Carlson, contingent upon background checks. And what we are hoping that will come from the council is an approval for Kim Carlson to hold the position of accounting manager at grade 12, step 4.
Thank you, Sandy. Council, any questions for Sandy this evening? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor Bain, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation to hire Kim Carlson to the new position of accounting manager at a grade 12, step 4.
Motion, is there a second?
If I could just make one amendment, could you just make that contingent upon the background check?
Contingent upon the background check is my amendment.
Amended motion, is there a second to the amendment?
A second.
Yeah, go ahead.
Second from, or a motion from Councilmember Munson, second from Councilmember Byström. Any further discussion?
Yeah, wait, exactly what does accounting manager position do?
Go ahead, Sandy.
This is the position that we added to be partly helping with the utility billing
Oh, yeah,
as well
right.
as for the accounting piece
Yeah.
of it.
Thanks.
This was approved and in budget.
Right. I just, the title was just.
Understood. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor signal by saying aye. Aye. Oppose, and motion carries. Our next item this evening is the tech position, new hire, Chief Newman.
Mayor and members of the council, our current fire tech, Aaron Reed, will be moving to Florida here toward the end of November. And so we kind of looked at this opportunity, since there was some time here, to hire an additional fire tech for overlapping, to be able to have Aaron train that person in. We went through the interview process, testing process, and we did offer a conditional offer to Nick Benelli. Nick would be starting on September 20th, and he has completed background check already, and we're recommending approval to hire the fire tech position starting at a grade 5, step 3 level.
Thank you, Chief. Council, any questions you may have?
What's the role of the fire tech?
So the fire tech works up in the front desk.
Okay.
And so their main job is building department, issuing permits, customer service, just anybody that walks up to the windows and is looking for a building permit, questions on zoning, or paying their water utility bill. So he works at that front desk 8 to 4:30. Now his priority's fire. So should we get a fire call during the day, if staffing's available to cover, he would leave and walk down to the fire department. One of the things that Nick Benelli, a qualification that he has, is he's 3 years on Scandia Fire. So he does have fire fighting background.
And I have to ask the obvious question. He will continue to be able to serve in that role even though he's not a resident of Forest Lake, or is?
Correct.
So he will continue to.
Yep,
he'll
and we've had
provide
employees
daytime fire support?
like that in the past that have lived out of Forest Lake. He'll still be required to come to our weekly trainings.
Yep.
And Saturday trainings and Sunday trainings that we have. He'll still have to meet that requirement, but he just won't there's two things. He won't be part of the Relief Association for retirement because he's too far out of the area. And then he won't be required to make 25% of the percentages because he'll be in force like for 40 hours during the week.
And does daytime fire response still continue to be a challenge, or do we still continue to, there was a time I know we were really pushed, and I think that's improved a little bit, but some
You know,
perspective on.
as people get new jobs, COVID, we get young guys that are in school, it just continually is a roller coaster. So, I mean, there's periods of 6 months or a year that we'll have great daytime coverage, and then people get different jobs and different things come up, and then we'll suffer for 6 months or a year. So I wish it was easier to make that consistent, but as a paid-on-call firefighter, this isn't your main job, so things just change.
So I would assume this helps that to a degree, you know, to have somebody on site, you know, maybe working that secondary or primary position and then responding to the, you know, the fire calls.
Yeah, 7 or 10 years ago, I'm not sure exactly when we started this program. It started off of a necessity for daytime staffing. And our number of responders was getting to that point where it was a challenge to provide daytime service to the community. So we went that direction of building department to be able to make fire runs, and that has helped. With Engineer Nate Motes and firefighter Reed, that gives us two people that we know for sure when they're available are going to show up, and eventually through attrition, through the building services, potentially we may be able to hire 2 additional daytime, full-time firefighters. And you know, really the goal of this program is to be a paid-on-call department as long as we can, you know, so we don't have to make that painful leap into full-time staffing.
Well, public safety is a core function of municipal government, and I do like that there's some overlap here a little bit for training and, you know, getting Nick up to speed as quickly as possible. So I'm in support.
Quick question, incoming recommended grade 5, step 3.
Yep.
Is that similar to the position that he's replacing, or what does that mean from a budget
Yes,
perspective?
that is the same position that we started Aaron Reed at.
Correct. Any other questions? Happy to entertain a motion if anyone's ready. I would move that we approve the hire of the fire tech position starting at grade 5, step 3, level at $30.27 per hour as recommended by Chief Newman. Is there a
Second.
Second from Councilmember Husnick. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose, and motion carries. That concludes our action agenda this evening. We will move into staff updates. And let's just start here at the beginning of the dais, work our way down. Start with Karen.
Updates?
Any updates?
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry. I apologize. I was into it. I have no updates.
Anything for Karen? Dan?
Mayor, members of council, I have 2 updates tonight. The first is a reminder of next week's downtown visioning session, which will be held on Tuesday, the 21st from 7 to 8:30 here at City Hall in the community room. I did meet with the planners last week, and we are adding a virtual session at the same time. So we are kind of trying this for the first time. This is the first time they've done an in-person and a virtual. The format will be, they'll do a little bit of a presentation on some of the summarization of the comments received to date. And then there'll be some small tabletop exercises that those in attendance will then take part in, sort of help guide some of the vision for what downtown will look like. We're going to mirror that with the digital session as well. So whoever attends digitally will then have their own group in a Zoom meeting, possibly with breakout sessions, depending upon the size there. And then all of that feedback will come back to the group at the end of the meeting, and there'll be some activities that'll put on the board and some takeaways there. We're also looking at the possibility of doing online feedback session. So if you can't attend in person or the virtual session, of keeping some level of engagement online or open online for the next week. The one sort of caveat there is these sessions are designed to sort of get consensus among ideas. Doing them individually online, it's gonna be more of a individual feedback. But the planner said they're just looking for any type of feedback, so I'll take that and just sort of caveat that out with, it wasn't reached by consensus, it was individual feedback through that session. So I think kind of given where we are in the world of COVID, this is the best land that we have, and they're excited to try the virtual and in-person session. So I'm hoping we have no technical difficulties, but the meeting tonight up in the joint meeting was sort of the trial run for the streaming, and it seemed to go off pretty well. So hopefully that's a sign of good things to come. A second update I have is that the senior center has reopened today. We opened under a modified phase 1 plan. So we went back to phase 1 and modified it slightly. We are requiring masks at the senior center. Social distancing is also required. And the senior center does have an air purification system that was installed as part of the CARES Act last year. So we are going to have those fans running all the time as well when people are occupied, to keep that air moving and circulating in the building. We'll revisit this at the end of the month to kind of see where the numbers are. Jill did reach out to Washington County Department of Health and asked them their input on that, and they said, they were in agreement with what we have done, and they actually commended her for kind of stepping back to a phase 1 footing. So we'll stay in that phase 1 footing until we sort of see what the numbers of what COVID does, and then bring programming back in as we're allowed to do. But the senior center has reopened as of today. That's all I have.
Excellent. Pass on our thanks to Jill for being proactive in that too. Well done. Any questions for Dan?
Dan, how are we marketing this downtown event? I just think with the virtual option, it really opens some doors to get some additional people there, and I just am curious how we're getting the word out.
As of right now, it's on the city's website on the homepage as a card. So we have a web card on there. It's also going out on the city's social media site as well. We'll also email out the invite to all of the boards and commissions and kind of do what we did for the downtown committee and say, expand this out to your audience as well. The virtual aspect of it, the meeting link is embedded in the city's website and on the city's investinforestlake.com website. So anybody goes to either one of those sites will be able to access the meeting link when it is online. So we're kind of using the same strategy that we did for the feedback for the virtual open houses that we had for the initial feedback.
Are we pushing it through the chamber?
We are not, actually we will. I'm meeting with them tomorrow for a breakfast, and we'll be letting them know as well. So,
okay.
Yep.
I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, we're doing it's a small group business breakfast tomorrow morning. The planner and I are going to be there tomorrow morning, and I'll be sure to remind Nanette and those in attendance to attend this downtown visioning session.
The chamber had a special session with the planner, right? You are the invited guest sort of for that breakfast tomorrow, right?
Correct, and we've also held some one-on-ones with businesses as well. But I think for this visioning session, the more people that we can get there, the more consensus we'll get behind the vision. So I think it's as big a group as we possibly can, and I'm hoping that we get a lot of online engagement as well for this. But we'll see. It's a little bit new territory for the planner, so they're excited for it. But it's I'm crossing my fingers that it goes off without a hitch.
Yeah, if there are any other organizations we can push it out through, that are connecting with residents in the community, that would be really great.
And I know we have a fairly big list for the downtown committee that's been fairly engaged. We'll make sure that gets out there as well tomorrow. The reason why this has been sort of delayed until today is that we didn't meet until Friday to finalize the agenda, the dates, times, everything like that. It was sort of, they needed to make sure they had enough feedback to go to the next stage. So as of Friday at about 10 o'clock, we finally got this finalized. So it's sort of, now we're in the marketing standpoint of it.
Great, thanks.
Go ahead.
I was going to give a shout out to Susan Young too, because at the previous meeting earlier tonight, she took the whole stack from me to pass out to friends and neighbors and whoever she knows to promote the meeting. So I want to say thanks to Susan for grabbing those.
Donovan.
Mayor, members of council, I want to first of all thank you all as some of the representatives from the joint workshop tonight preceding this meeting. Really appreciate you taking the time and willingness to engage, and I think it provides some really good direction for Plan Commission. I think it was also important that suddenly, I wasn't kind of the gatekeeper for developers to talk directly with you all. I mean, I don't mean to be anything to, stifling divergent viewpoints, but, within the context of applications, there's not a lot to talk about vision. So I thought that was an important ingredient to include. Also is with a, heavy heart and sound mind that I have accepted a job with Carver County, that most of you have heard that, but I wanted to announce formally to this body, and I'll miss you all and really appreciate being here for almost past 7 years. And once I made that decision, I had, reached out to immediately, had started discussions with Pat Casey and Ryan on transition. And so Bolton Mink is stepping up, and in the room, sitting back there, is Nathan First, who is going to be one of the 2 planners who will provide the transition services until a permanent replacement is found. And also Franny Nelson. Am I pronouncing your name correctly? Is that Nelson or Nielsen? Nielsen. And Nathan, not to put you on the spot, but if you want to come introduce yourself, kind of a little bit about yourself. I've met with Nathan. We met it was supposed to be a 2-hour meeting on Thursday. I think it went to about 6 hours maybe.
Wow.
And we'll meet again tomorrow. So I think we're in good hands city's in good hands with Bolton and Mink.
Well, happy to hear some opening comments, but also, Donovan, just want to thank you for your service and wish you all the best in Carver County. I was a little surprised that tonight's conversation about the sign ordinance wasn't enough candy to make you want to stay, but thank you for everything you do.
Was it something I said?
Best wishes. Welcome, glad you're here.
Yeah, thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Nathan First, Community Planner with Bolton and Mink.
Excellent. Look forward to working with you.
Likewise.
And Pete.
I can't follow that, Your Honor.
Yeah.
I have no update.
Anything for Pete? All right. And let's just circle Ryan. We'll go kind of back around through the dais.
Mayor, City Council, for those of you that aren't familiar, we did provide planning services on a temporary basis prior to Donovan being hired. So Donovan was, though, very helpful this time because we actually had a transition to go over some stuff where previously we did not. We just had to start picking away at what might have been left there. And with that being said, I just want to personally thank the time that I've spent working with Donovan. Obviously, it's probably one of the employees I spend the most time talking about because of all the activity that goes on within the city that you guys probably don't even know about on a daily basis. There's a lot of pulse out there in the community, and a lot of stuff was flown through Donovan's desk where, typically and previously you guys have had several staff members dealing with a lot of that. So, it's a lot of work he was pushing through the door, and, it was a pleasure working with him and wish him the best of luck at Carver County. So, other things to talk about, the road project was done prior to school starting, so anybody coming to Forest Lake football games this year is gonna be pretty amazed, just the roads getting to there, plus the new stadium, so that's kind of exciting. But still a lot of activity going on with private work. A lot of the people that were in the room tonight with us are people we're actively talking to on subdivision work within the community, so that'll be very exciting what's gonna come forward here in the winter time and ramp up for 2022 construction. So with 22 construction, our first public open house planned for North Shore Circle is October 4th up in the community room, 5:30 to 7. So we'll be, if we haven't already sent the mailers out to the property owners just to make them aware of it, and we'll work with city staff on social media posts too. So with that, I'll just open up with if you guys have any other questions.
Any questions for Ryan? Kelly, go ahead.
Just what date did you say the North Shore Circle was?
Monday, October 4th, 5:30.
I know that we had some residents from that area with some concerns about that small park over there. Has there been any more progress on development of that, or?
So we've been talking, we're keeping a master spreadsheet of property owners and concerns and issues that we've had to date, so we can continue to work through that with them. They'll hopefully be at the public open house. We did have some conversation after the Lakes, Trails, and Parks meeting, which a lot of them attended, where those issues did arise. What was seen on those drawings was simply just purely represented for discussion purposes and what could be or not be, you know, and stuff like that. And yeah, one of the drawings had a 10-foot paved trail right down to the lake. Obviously, we would never, ever probably do that, you know, especially with the watershed rules and requirements and how we would treat that. And then, you know, working within the ordinary high water level area to catch that water, we couldn't probably physically even do it. But it was just to get the conversation rolling on how we could mix park use with stormwater use, and would you be okay for us to explore that further?
Thank you for
And
that
I lost
update.
my voice this weekend from a football game and our first weekend of fall baseball. Bunch of young kids.
That'll do it. Reflecting on the comments from tonight's workshop with the Planning Commission and the EDA, I'd be interested in, I know this is already on your radar, but you know, we heard some feedback around engineering standards, and I'm just, help us to get that into the right context, and if there's something that should be looked at, let's do it, but if it's a hard no, I'm interested in hearing that, not tonight, but just in the right context as we're kind of weighing all of the feedback we heard, so.
Well, just on a high level there, you know, briefly, developers want a little skinnier road, but we're talking a little skinnier, but how skinnier do you want to go? Right now, our standard urban residential road is 34 feet back to back a curb. The curb widths are just a hair over 2 feet width, so that leaves you approximately 29 point something feet of actual pavement. So divide that, say, simple number, say it was 30 divided by 10. That means you could have somebody parking on one side of the road in two-way traffic still. If you go skinnier than that, you're not gonna be allowed to have that. So that's the trade-off, right? As state aid road, the skinniest lanes they allow us to go are 11 feet. So, you know, put that all in perspective. Is it worth trading off some of that? And then all of a sudden you got cars parked on both sides of the road. Could a fire truck get through? You know, that's, you know, where we're at with that. The other one is oftentimes related, do you want sidewalks or pedestrian facilities on both sides of the road? Currently, right now, we just have sidewalk on one side, no sidewalks in cul-de-sacs. And, you know, that's another thing that's being talked about. Some city staff or Parks and Trails might ideally want sidewalk on both sides, you know, so that's obviously more costs, more future maintenance for Public Works too. So those are the trade-offs there. I think there are some confusion on where the setback starts on some of this stuff. What does it start at the drainage utility easement, or does it start at the right of way? You know, maybe that could be some things that are easily clarified. When it comes down to standard road right of ways, are pretty typical about what everybody else is. There are situations where we've gone down from a 60 to a 50, but if it's identified in our comprehensive plan to be a major collector, or at least we've been requiring 100 feet, if not more, on some certain corridors. But that's already in the plan, you know.
Appreciate that, and help us kind of keep that, keep it where it needs to be. If there's some updates, let's hear it, but if it's a hard, you know, we're on the right path, and let's not reconsider, so. All right, anything else for Ryan? Chief Peterson.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council members, I probably should have done it at the time, but I definitely wanted to thank mHealth Chief, Deputy Chief, and all their personnel. It's been a pleasure working with them over the last year, and it's been a positive partnership. And other than that, I've got no other updates unless you have questions for me.
Any questions for Chief this evening? All right, Chief Newman.
Mayor and Council, I've got two updates tonight. First is our application period for the fire department closed on 9/1. We ended up with 17 applications, which was 4 more than what we did in the previous hiring segment. We had our fire department orientation last Thursday. Of that 17 applications, we had 13 potential candidates show up and go through the orientation. The physical agility test will be this Saturday, and then interviews will be October 2nd, and we're looking to hire up to 5 firefighters. For the building department update, last Thursday, we interviewed for the position of Building Inspector 1. This is a vacant position that's been vacant for about a year. And then at the next council meeting, we're gonna bring in a recommendation for hiring. So interviews went well, and I think we have a great candidate for that position.
I'll put you on the spot. Have you, and if you don't have an update tonight, that's fine. Initial feedback on the engagement survey of builders? I think you were doing some surveys.
We actually run into a little bit of a hitch and found out that our application process didn't ask for the right information.
Oh, shoot.
And so we've revised that application process. And once we get through this fire department hiring segment, we're gonna get back to that. That should give the building department enough time for them applications that came in to flow through that process. So we have the correct names, email addresses, and the data that we need to actually do a successful online survey.
Thank you. Any other questions for Chief? All right, and Sandy.
Yes, since it is the middle of September, I just wanted to remind everybody, this is going to be the first quarter that we're going to be putting bills out for having it in-house, utility billing in-house. So the bills will be going out in October, so we got some time yet to push those bills out, but the end of the quarter is this month. We are going to be putting information onto the website regarding the charges that will occur for using credit cards, online payments, and so forth. I know there was a little bit of confusion because we did let certain individuals do it a little bit early because there was some trouble with doing the credit cards on the old system. So hopefully that will resolve some of the questions and put it out there so that they can call us with any questions that they may have. Other than that, we're still working on it, and we're thankful we got this accounting manager to help us out with this.
Questions for Sandy?
Just a comment, I know we put a lot on the website. I'm not sure how much we draw to the website, and I'm just a supporter of pushing communication out as well.
Absolutely.
In whatever means we can do that, whether that's in mailings that are going out, social media,
Absolutely, and we're trying to do that as well. I think we need to use all avenues we can so that there's a clear picture for everybody of what the fees are going to be.
Yeah. Even as simple as the cards that are on the website are great. Even just those snapshots as social media campaigns is just helpful because just same
Great
content
suggestion.
just getting
Thank you.
pushed out. The decision on credit card charges, I was a little confused. So we are doing an installment charge or a fee for using credit cards. Is that yes, we are?
Yeah, we've always had fees. I don't know why some individuals didn't think they had fees, and we're kind of still researching, the questions that came about.
Yeah.
From some of the customers that used it, but we've always had fees, so we're not quite sure if it was portrayed differently or so we're kind of still researching that with the old company to see how that really was portrayed to the customers.
And so the intent is that we are same as, so we're not changing fees, we're not increasing fees. The goal is that it's the same. Is that the goal?
As close as possible, put it that way. We're at a straight percentage all across the board. Depending on what credit company we use, it's so different how their fee structure is. They had, the last one we used had a percentage plus other fees on top of it. So, some may have a 50 or 60 cent, difference, may have an increase, whereas others may have a decrease. So it's not across the board as far as being the same, but it's comparable.
Just context purposes,
Mhm.
I pay every billing period on a credit card, and I don't remember ever seeing a fee, and so I was surprised by that. And I can, if looking at my
Okay.
account helps you to
Well, we're going to
reconcile
keep
that.
on researching that then and see what
Okay,
possibly could have happened in the old system.
okay. Because I would say if we haven't historically charged the fee, whatever we can do to encourage that, I'd
Absolutely.
be interested in seeing what that break-even point is, because not, collecting manual payment also, it has some work effort associated with it, and I'd like to incent electronic payment if that is more efficient, so.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So is there a difference with debit cards though, or if somebody writes a check, there's no fee attached to that?
There's,
it's
for
just the
credit and debit cards, there is a fee.
Credit and debit.
And PayPal, if they use PayPal, I don't know if anybody uses that.
Yeah, because I can't
Let's-
recall either paying my bill.
No, let's find a medium where that, there's got to be a savings someplace along the line where we can mitigate some of that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
would
Because
agree.
I agree, that's, gonna be a soft spot.
And certainly if, the council wants to talk about that as, the city can take those charges. And if that's something that we want to do, maybe we can have that conversation.
And I think understanding what historically the previous provider was doing and how we were collecting on that if we were, because obviously if we've always done it and there's a revenue impact, we should know that before we decide to pull fees. But I didn't even think to ask that question because I just don't remember ever paying that. So it'd be good.
And that's a concern, is if we're not seeing it, because I know in about 2 years ago, there was like this $9 charge that was going to everybody about 2 years ago, and the third party changed the credit card system to a percentage rate. So I'm not quite sure how this, we're going to do some research on it. And if it indeed hasn't ever been charged to everybody, and then we need to, of course, address that.
Right.
But if it has been, then, we can always have those conversations as far as what is that dollar amount, and if it grows,
Right.
then there's that question of what will that impact be?
It feels a little messy right now. I just want to be sure we get
Yeah.
ahead of it a little bit, so that we can help our constituency kind of understand what's going on here
Right.
with the change in service. And if it was wrapped in some way, shape, or form,
Exactly.
and now it's not,
Exactly.
it's standing out alone, we've got to be really good with communication and transparency and help them understand that. And if it hasn't been done before, I do think we need to have a conversation about how we look at absorbing that, or.
And the city hasn't paid it. So but that's why, I just don't know how it was portrayed as being charged to everybody. And that's what we have to find out from the third party. And of course, we don't have a relationship with them anymore, so I got to go directly to the credit card company that we use to try to find out those answers.
Yeah, most companies don't charge a credit card fee because it's really efficient way of getting the job done and getting it paid, I know in our business, that's the way it is. I wouldn't trade the efficiency for trying to get a fee out of it ever, because, just because of the way it works, so.
And we can certainly have that conversation.
Yeah, we need to talk about that.
If you find that it wasn't charged, let's talk about whether we should, so.
And maybe we'll put that on the next agenda as far as having that conversation. That's a discussion item.
That'd be great.
And actually, just thinking in terms of next agenda, maybe just kind of walking through just a current update, given timing of this next round of billing and questions we may have, anything we can have to be armed with to answer questions would be helpful. So,
Okay.
Anything else this evening? All right, let's do council updates. Start with Councilmember Munson.
Sure, no update, but I just wanted to take a minute to thank Donovan for the last 7 years in your work. You juggled a lot of different duties, various duties. And then also thank you for your patience with I know myself, and learning new terms and learning a lot about city planning. So thank you.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Councilmember Byström.
No update from me, but I just echo Councilmember Munson's sentiment, and thank you very much. And sometimes it's a thankless position, and we do appreciate you always conducting yourself with great integrity. And
Thank you.
we'll miss you.
Councilmember Husnick.
I have no updates tonight, but also I want to wish Donovan well in his new endeavor, and thanks for the past 7 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
Councilmember Valento.
No updates for me, but also thanks, Donovan. It's been short working with you, but thank you for all you've done for the community.
Thank you.
And no updates here either. I will just echo everyone's sentiments, and we wish you just the very best. And thank you for all you've done. I am copied on not half as many messages as you have, but I do appreciate the thankless part of that job. And so thank you for what you've done, and just wish you all the best. With that, we don't have anything else on our agenda this evening. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? And we're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.